Then don't forget that currently, in terms of the geopolitics, we have a seat at the Security Council. We are one of the 10 non-permanent countries at the Security Council. And with what is going on, every now and then, there is a need for a critical vote at the United Nations on the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. I remember that Africa has not been, if you like, decided, voting in a unanimous way. The last time the count was done, Africa was virtually divided. A good number of African countries abstained. And the Americans will want to have more allies. On the case of Ghana, you say that our president has already committed. So that gives further impetus. The Americans feel more comfortable to deal with us. But they would want to consolidate that, alliance. But don't forget that China and Russia have not given up. So if you're following the geopolitics, you see that there has been renewed interest. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, has been touring Africa very, very busily. I mean, if you look at his trips abroad, Africa has dominated from January. He's been to Mali, he's been to Mozambique, Sudan, Eritrea. He's been very busy. And Sergei Lavrov is, if you like, the primus inter pares of all foreign ministers, very well regarded. If Sergei Lavrov is in your country, it's very much like Putin is in your country. And he has been really busy, attending to African concerns. He's been to South Africa recently. Russia, China, and South Africa did those, military games that they exhibited to the world, which the Americans were not too comfortable with. Then don't forget, China is also consolidating. They haven't moved out at all. Because in the case of the Americans, there has been a break where when Trump came in, Trump didn't care much about Africa. He never stepped foot throughout the entire 4 years. It was his wife who did limited visits. Then he ran into trouble with us, remember, in 2018, when he made that infamous S-hole speech, which African diplomats at the United Nations held a press conference and condemned. The AU also condemned that speech. He didn't do much to redeem his image. So the Americans now want to undo the Trump era of, if you like, seeming neglect and demeaning the relationship that historically has been phenomenal, if you like.
But you make an important point
about... So China, I was talking about China. Don't rule out China's role. China has been the more generous of the three superpowers, and they don't have a lot of these traditional conditionalities. You must meet this democratic standard, this human rights record, and all of that. It's transactional. And many African countries have been comfortable with China too, because the history with China has been, if you like, more friendly, not checkered. Don't forget that with the Americans, we have the Euro-American slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. In our recesses, they have not paid compensation, which is one of the issues African leaders have been raising now. Only last year, there was a major summit here in Accra. Our president renewed the call for reparation. The Jews have received reparation for the Holocaust from the Germans, running into in excess of 83 billion. Africa has not. All we get every now and then is an apology. Last year, the Dutch were the latest to apologize to us, but nothing material, really, in terms of, compensatory or reparative justice. All they have said is that, look, we'll set aside some 204 million for scholarships, but that's not adequate if you compare, the Holocaust, to what slavery has done to the continent and continues to do even to the psyche and to the dignity of Africa. So with China and Russia, they don't really have this past, no slavery background, no colonial, relics, lingering in the historical trajectory. So they have over the years built themselves as some natural allies, and because they've also come in to support in strategic moments. The South Africans, for example, why Russia continues to be very popular, is that when America was labeling ANC as a terrorist organization, when Nelson Mandela was on the watch list as a terrorist, the Russians saw apartheid as what it is, injustice, and declared support for the blacks and strategically supported them right through to the Battle of Quito Carnival, when USSR and Soviet forces aligned with troops on the continent, and that was seen as the last, if you like, blow to the apartheid forces. So